on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about the first thing. We're going to give you an update about those 5 black former police officers for the city of Memphis, who beat Tyre Nichols in that brutal beating, how they're now facing federal charges. We're going to share with you the latest about that situation. Also, folks, can we have a conversation about what happened to the sister that was hit in the face with the brick? How there are some folks that are online that's saying that the whole thing was possible hoax. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and more importantly, the implications of this latest act. Also, folks, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the reparations movement here in the state of California. How there's a new poll that shows that a lot of people don't want Black Californians to have reparations. Wow. We'll have that and a whole lot more. Checking in with our sister, Suzette Speaks. It's not Wednesday, it is Thursday, but she said she had to jump on to give us her insight and expertise on these conversations. So folks, stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. We are broadcasting live from the great city of Los Angeles, California. And today we are going to have some fantastic conversations. I'm really excited because even though today is Thursday, folks, and happy Thursday, we're still going to be joined by one of our most profound contributors here, one of the great culture crew members here on the show, Miss Suzette Speaks, who is a lawyer and the host of the Suzette Speaks show on YouTube. So she's going to be joining us in a few moments as she provides some insight and her expertise on all of these big conversations that we got planned for you. So folks, you don't want to miss a word. And I highly encourage you that you stay tuned for all the conversations that's going to be happening. Make sure that you let your friends and family know, go on social media, let folks know that we are broadcasting live today here on the Black Star Network on The Culture, as we are on a number of different platforms, including our very own website, our home platform, blackstarnetwork.com. You can also find us on Fire TV under Amazon News, and you can find us on Plex TV, and you can find us under News and Opinion on Plex TV, where we're streaming there for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, on the social media side, make sure you do your due diligence. Check us out on our Facebook page under Roland Martin, and we're also on YouTube under Roland Martin's YouTube page. And folks, that is where you could be a part of the online culture crew, where you could join us in the conversation, share your thoughts, pose your questions. And guess what? We'll bring those to the forefront. We'll bring those into the discussions. As I'm talking to Suzette, I'm also talking to you and with you about these discussions. So make sure y'all join us on in the YouTube chat under Roland Martin to be a part of today's culture crew. All right, folks, let's jump right into it, because I gotta have my sister from another mother checking in, and I'm so happy she could join me on a Thursday.
Hey, everybody, it's Thursday.
My sister Suzette Speaks. There it is. No, Suzette, for real. Our conversations help me get through the week. So anytime you want to come on. But I will let you know, folks, I gotta let y'all know that Suzette won't be able to join us next week, not because she don't want to be here, but because she's going to be doing her due diligence at the CBC convention all week next week. That's going to be happening. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, because that's on the agenda. So
yes,
we should be getting,
let's go. Here we go.
We should be getting some great updates from Suzette about that. But folks, let's jump right into it first and foremost. And if you haven't checked this out, you know, we got a ton of content that we're streaming right now on Black Star Network. So some of you might still be tuning in or kind of switching back and forth. But we know that there is a lot of conversation about the latest developments, Suzette, with this Tyre Nichols case. With, more importantly, not with his case, but with what's going to be the fate of those 5 black police officers, those former Memphis police officers. Are they now facing federal charges? And this is another, I guess, another step of the process, because some folks And I'm probably one of them folks that want to see these men in jail for what they did to our brother. But here's the latest from NBC News. Excuse me. Take a look at this, folks. This is we're talking about Tadarius Bean, Desmond Mills, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin, and Justice Smith. They were all indicted in U.S. District Court in Memphis. They're those 5 black men. I can't get past this. Lisa, let's put those pictures back up for me, please. I cannot believe these black men beat on Tyre Nichols the way they did. I cannot get past it. These look like brothers you would see in the neighborhood, brothers that might be coaching. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to even have a conversation like this. But these are those 5 black men that are responsible for killing our brother right on video. Now they're facing a 4-count indictment charge, and 4-count indictment charges them with deprivation of rights under the color of law through excessive force and failure to intervene, and through deliberate indifference, conspiracy to witness tampering, and obstruction of justice through witness tampering. The 5 former officers have pleaded not guilty to state charges of second-degree murder and other alleged offenses in this case. All right, so there's a lot of pieces to this, and I'm so happy. That's why I wanted to chat with you about this, Suzette, to get your legal expertise. But what does this mean? What's the difference between what the state charged and now what the federal government is charging against these black men?
Yes, I'd love to give you a little bit more insight. I want to say what's up to the Culture crew. Thank you again for being with us. Those who are in the chat, watching around the world, Team Replay, thank you so much because we have a great topics today. Now we're starting with Tyre Nichols. As Farajii has laid out, we're now seeing federal charges introduced in this case. So as I like to give a little bit of a civics lesson, as we're always kind of hearing between the state charges and the federal charges, really in the United States, we have about 51 systems of justice. We have 50 states, which each have their own laws, right? And they have an interest in making sure that people obey their laws. And then we have a federal system of justice, which is laws passed by the United States Congress, right? And those laws also must be obeyed. So we know that back in January, when this case unfolded, Tyre Nichols, as you guys remember, the young skateboarder on his way home, just blocks away from his mom's house, 29 years old, was accosted and really on tape, we can see him beat down by these 5 black officers who, according to what we see on video, and I think there is a light post video that was just shocking and striking, showing without sound what they did to this young brother who died 3 days later in the hospital due to the injuries he received during this traffic stop. So looking back at this case, it was just in January, Farajii, and it feels like so long ago, but it happened this year. We're now seeing the second layer of prosecution. So we already had state charges against these men, but now the federal government is looking at its book of laws and saying there were violations on the federal level that now also can be prosecuted. So as you laid out those charges, we see 5 additional charges against these men. Again, we are totally in shock as a community that 5 black police officers were those who perpetrated this crime. But I think it's important that the feds do get involved, that the federal prosecution now takes place, and we see a possibility of more jail time, right? More stiffer penalties to the behavior that they demonstrated that January night. So we are looking at, again, just the second system, right? We know the state there in Tennessee and Memphis. We already saw that there were local charges brought. They were immediately fired. Even a couple of them were members of like fraternities, and they got their membership renounced and those type of things. These were around the way brothers. So when we were looking at their behavior and their mindset as to why they did this, it goes very deep. But just as kind of a general primer as to why we're hearing about it again, now we're seeing that second level of prosecution. The federal law that was broken is now what is in question, and they will now see themselves having to defend themselves in federal court, not just in state court.
I know we got to take a quick pause, Suzette, but I'm wondering, why did they plead? I mean, I obviously nobody wants to plead guilty for something in any court case, regardless of whether you're guilty or innocent. But they took that and said not guilty. Wasn't this a situation because they pled not guilty in the state charges that it went up the ladder to the federal charges versus if they would have pled guilty to the state charges, you wouldn't have this second layer of prosecution?
No, I don't think it had to do with their plea. It's just a matter of the prosecutorial offices now having the time to review the evidence and saying, you know what, we have enough facts in evidence to now bring this charge against them that they broke federal law as well. So no, whether they had pled guilty or not.
So this wasn't like an appeal.
No.
I'm sorry, it wasn't like an appeal.
Not yet. This is just the state prosecutors, right? The attorneys that, for example, that we see in the Trump case, while we have different cases, state of Georgia, right? Fani Willis is there in Georgia, but we also have the federal charges that he broke, allegedly broke the law and keeping documents, etc. It's just a different layer of prosecution based on the federal law as opposed to based on the state laws.
So now that that's at the federal point, does that mean that we should expect some conviction?
It's possible. I think what they've laid out as far as their charges, we saw the video of them punching, kicking, beating him. And again, they're charging violation of civil rights. I think, again, it'll be up to a jury. But just looking at the evidence presently available to the public, there is a strong case for conviction. So they're going to obviously say they were working as police officers. This happened in their line of duty. They had, threat of bodily harm, endangered, their life was endangered. They're going to make the argument that any defense lawyer worth his or her salt would make. So they pled not guilty. But again, the evidence is just on tape. We have the video. We have eyewitness. So it'll be a tough case to defend, but they're going to try to do it.
You talked about this, and I know we got 30 seconds. You talked about the witness thing, and it came up in the charges, witness tampering. What is that about?
I have not read in detail for this case, but usually charges like that come with them intimidating, people who were involved or saw what happened or directly after the crime. For example, on that scene, we remember that we saw the medical personnel, the ambulance folks that did not render aid right away to that dying man laying on the ground. So when it comes to locking arms, sometimes we hear about the blue wall of silence and people who are, intimidated into making sure they don't, say anything that's going to make their department or those individual officers look bad. So I am saying, as we are obviously going to get more detail as to the charges, it usually relates to them coming to a stance of influencing folks who saw what happened or were there immediately after or took reports thereafter and trying to get them to alter their version of events.
Gotcha. So that could be the medical personnel.
That's what came to mind.
Was on scene. Yeah.
I haven't read the entire indictment, but that's what came to mind when it comes to witness tampering. Those folks who are in any way just there or closely thereafter the transaction or the event has happened. People who are, contemporaneously, that's the word I'm looking for, involved in, viewing, listening to, seeing any and everything that was involved in this sequence of events. So if they in any way try to influence anyone, that's where that charge would come from.
Wow, there it is. Suzette, we're going to have to keep our eyes on this, obviously, and until the final verdict is rendered in this case. But I'm glad they're getting the second level of prosecution. But more important, I'm glad that you shared with us that there are 51 systems of justice. No wonder.
Each state has its own body of laws that we must obey in that state, plus the federal government's laws. So yeah, a lot of times we hear U.S. District Court, that's the United States government, the feds. Then we hear state court, that's that individual state's body of laws that must be obeyed. And we have prosecutors on both levels.
Wow, there it is right there. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation on the other side. Let's talk a little bit about this situation with the Black woman that was alleged to be hit by a brick. Now there are a lot of questions and new concerns out there in social media and other spaces that it may have all been a lie. But this is not just about her. It's that because this story has gone so public and viral, that this might be a greater indictment on Black men and so many other folks in our culture. We're going to have that conversation up next. Stay with us, folks. We're just getting started here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network.
On his first day in office, with the country in crisis, President Biden got to work for us. Cutting Black child poverty in half, more money for Black entrepreneurs, millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowered the cost of living and prescription drugs. But there's more to do. He gets it because we all deserve dignity, safety, respect, and a chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Let's talk about this situation with the sister that was hit in the face by a brick, according to her. Now, there are some new concerns that are out there on social media that says that this situation is a hoax and that this is not the very first time that this young lady has made such a claim, especially in a very, very big way. Let me bring my sister Suzette Speaks back into this because Suzette, you wanted to kind of bring this to the forefront because you said, oh, of course, everybody was talking about it a couple of weeks ago. Or was it last week or a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, just last week. It seems like a
last week.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about life and time.
Well, that's so quickly, Farajii. It's like it's all coming together. I hear
it's
you.
Like you're just like sitting there. But now, you know, I knew I had strong feelings about it. Right. You kept telling me, hey, Farajii, I'm just saying, though, Farajii. I'm just saying, though.
Yeah.
I got you, brother. I'm with you. I feel you. But at the end of the day, this sister is questionable.
Yeah.
So even though there are some talk about this, major news outlets have not verified that she did make a lie, but folks online are pulling up all types of information, and there's just some general chatter about the situation. All right, Suzette, talk to us about this.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this back up, you guys, because I know we covered it right here, and that show has over 20,000 views, and people are all over those comments, Farajii. So the same energy that we gave covering viral stories, which is what we do here on The Culture, we're going to also cover when we get more information, and it seems as if in this case, there's a lot of movement. So as you guys can recall, there was a young lady, and I will say her name. All of these are allegations. Nothing has been proven. But again, we follow what the trends are. So at the time, we had her version of events, which was her recording herself. It seemed to be out of Houston, Texas, during or after a visit to a club. Her face was swole up, claimed to be hit in the face by a black man with a brick. And she, started off on a tirade. She was using the N-word. She was going back and forth, saying that there were no black men willing to interject in her plight, that she was there all by herself, and all these black men just stood around. And again, when we first covered this story, Farajii, in my spirit, and I said it then, it just didn't seem right, because the black men I know are men of valor. They come to your aid. They do show up. And this kind of stereotype that it looks like exploited, took its course on social media. It was covered by every major news outlet. And as you have pointed out, just getting ready for the show today, I was looking around, and it was no major outlet covering what could be a possible hoax. Now, all of these, again, are allegations. What has allegedly come forward now is that there's evidence that she has done this in the past, that this lady may not even have been a victim and was using this as a scam to collect funds through a GoFundMe. So she goes by Ro Bache on Instagram. And again, all parties are innocent until proven otherwise. But and she also goes by Rhoda Osman. And in this kind of viral turn of events, it seems as if there are people who've come forward, many on YouTube, many on TikTok, to say that she did this to herself, and that, again, this shows a pattern of her trying to play victim. Now, what happened was in 2020, there's evidence based on her own Instagram that she made similar allegations before, where she came forward at the time. She claimed she was hit by a security guard at a dollar store and that no one did anything about it. And that, again, she had shown swelling on a part of her cheek, and she took to social media and just started to make that claim and raised on GoFundMe as a result of the 2020 alleged incident more than $5,000. Now, here we are again. We're seeing that she has, as you pointed out in the last time we covered this on this show, that she has skits and spoofs and pranks that she is also known to do, which sometimes people have pointed out have, gender role type, tension and racial undertones and pitting the sexes, quote, against each other. And it seems as if, again, this may have all been for clicks and views and for sympathy, and possibly just to grift the public, as we saw recently, similar to maybe a Carly Russell, and someone who, for different reasons, saw an opportunity. So this seems, again, to have taken a terrible turn. We're going to call it, just like, again, we went to the first facts that we had in the story and kind of brought it to the public, but we have to be fair and also let people know that, again, nothing has been corroborated, confirmed. All of these are allegations, but we're seeing, new information come out about this alleged victim that are very troubling, to say the least. And again, we need to gain more information, more clarity to understand if this really actually happened. And if it didn't really happen the way she claimed, she needs to be held accountable.
So I agree with you, Pauline. You checked in, and good big shout out to the online culture crew. Pauline, you made that point that if she did lie, that she needs to be held accountable, that something needs to be done. You said if she is lying, she needs to get in trouble. So I totally agree with you. I think that there are so many different dynamics around this situation, because just like you mentioned, how about that first situation of Carly Russell, where we as Black folks in this country, we were rooting for her to come home safe and sound. And even in that situation, there were a number of people like, this situation doesn't sound like it passes the valor or the truth test here. So my concern is that we're starting to see more and more of this. That's one of my concern. And then at the same time, not only are we starting to see more and more of this, but Suzette, we're starting to see this coming from Black women. Now, it's like the hill gets more steeper and steeper for Black women to share their truth, to tell their story, and for them to be believed. Talk to me. What's your take on it?
100%. It hurts Black women's credibility every time we see a grifter or someone who has allegedly, hoaxed the public, right? Defiled the public's trust in, what we thought was a genuine cry for help. Again, you take time with these stories. We cover them as the facts kind of roll out, but that put a stain on Black men. I'm talking about internationally. If you look up Black woman hit by brick, all the major news outlets covered it. And again, the fact that it possibly could have been something that was fabricated and not true at all. Think about the damage, not only that it does to Black women's credibility, but that it has done to Black men. Black men are always at the kind of forefront of trying to create a positive image in the public's eye. And we have someone like this. Again, I don't blame all Black women. I blame this individual. But folks who are, destroying and trying to kind of exploit stereotypes for their own personal gain, so that we see this horrific viral story. People's hearts were moved, and I don't blame people for seeing something that seems so horrific and reacting. But now that we have a little bit more information, and again, I tried to bring it out when we first covered the story, that there were men who claimed to be at this venue when she was there, who said they didn't see a brick, and who said that she had been a troublemaker in the past. Their words, not mine, alleging that her behavior had possibly contributed to what may or may not have occurred. But again, it is damning, and it is just it's unspeakable to think that an individual would utilize this form of just fabrication to go viral, to get clicks, and to try to raise money. The first day alone of her GoFundMe, she raised over $30,000, and to date now it's over $40,000. And she's taken advantage of the public and really tried to exploit this narrative around
she shouldn't be able to do it,
of Black men, and really has put a greater divide between Black men and Black women. And she knew she would exploit that if that was the trope that she put out there. And she got the reaction that she wanted. And again, we're not seeing any counter information by major news saying that this now looks as if it could have possibly been a hoax. So it's really dangerous what she's done.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous. And I like the way you put that, Suzette, because there was a huge divide in this situation. You don't like my music. You said misogynist violence is grossly underreported, not overreported. Please mention that, Farajii. Yep, we mentioned it. And you also mentioned you don't like my music. You said domestic violence is grossly underreported, not overreported. Absolutely. And then you added one story of a fake victim gets more attention than the thousands of real ones.
Well,
do you agree with that, Suzette?
I don't know that I can overly maybe simplify it in that way, because I do think it matters that we cover when a person is dishonest. It does matter, because the demonization of Black men that she allegedly has portrayed is just as violent to them as the violence that we know happens in our communities towards women. So I think, I don't think it's either or. I think it's both and. We can both say women are under attack in many instances and should, with more, investigation, be believed. But I do think when there are people who try to destroy the credibility of Black men, and had successfully done so on a wide scale thanks to social media, we also need to correct the record and say, this is not what happens. And so, this idea that, we can't necessarily highlight both, I think we have to. I think it's unfair to the men who are hardworking, going about their daily, lives, and always having to, have a second layer of thinking, right, to counteract what are already, things that are projected onto them by society, by police, by whoever else in their workplaces, in the community at large. This is a real issue. And I don't think we negate what happens in real life to Black women by saying this type of person needs to be held accountable and we should be talking about them equally.
Absolutely. We got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation as we talk about the Black woman that was allegedly hit with a brick, how there are now some real questions about the validity of her story. Folks, we want you to join us in the conversation. Post your thoughts on our YouTube page under Roland Martin and share with us your thoughts as we talk about this situation. And stay tuned. We got a lot more to cover here on the first hour of the culture here on the Black Star Network.
President Biden has delivered for Black America. More funding for Black entrepreneurs. Millions of new good-paying jobs. He's lowering the cost of medications and the cost of living. Joe Biden is delivering for us, and that's the facts.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, folks. as we have been having a big discussion about the situation around the Black woman who was allegedly hit in the face with a brick for simply not giving a man her phone number. Y'all remember that story from a couple of weeks ago? Went viral. She went on air on her social media and had a number of videos of her from in the hospital and everything else. Now, when I first saw the video, I was like, man, this is crazy. This is insane. This is crazy. The sister said Black man did it. She was around other black men who didn't intervene, and as a result of that, she was victimized, and she was able to raise money, get national attention, and more importantly, it created a divide, a shift in the conversation about protecting Black women from Black men. Now, folks, it looks like that this story, her allegations, may all be made up. Let me bring my sister Suzette Speaks back into the frame here, folks.
Farajii.
Now look.
It's hurt my soul. It's hurt my soul.
The crazy part is, I was all in, and I don't know if anybody else was in the school of thought, Suzette, but I was like, oh, look at her face. Look at her face. And it literally just dawned on me as I'm listening to you. Literally just dawned on me. I said, this sister could have taken something, and it could have been a simple allergic reaction.
Yeah. I see you guys in the chat getting busy. Yeah, this is what we are hearing all around. Again, social media was such a medium for this thing to kind of grow in terms of the story being picked up by all the major news outlets that reported on it. So we're here to kind of just offer more information as we're seeing it also on social media. A lot of the Black YouTubers and TikTokers, we see y'all that are going a little bit deeper into what may have actually occurred. Now, as you stated, there are people that have brought receipts and, tried to explain what actually happened to her face. Because if you think about it, a brick to one's face, the discoloration, the possible bleeding, the cut, it does not necessarily add up. I'm just talking about, lay person to even medical.
Wait a minute, hold on, Suzette. See, we gotta be freaking CSI.
That's what we do. Sad.
And this is real talk. And you're absolutely right, because I watch enough. I am verified because I watch a lot of police television. Let me stop playing. But here's the thing. That once you get to that level of detail where you have to quote unquote investigate, we are all in trouble.
Yeah.
Black women are in trouble, right? Now, I'm not going to change my stance on protecting Black women.
Right.
And you know what? And I'm going to just be very clear about this. I don't care if there are 1,000 cases of Black women who make up hoaxes about their physical and emotional and spiritual violation, whatever the case may be. I'm going to believe it until otherwise. You are innocent, in my mind, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. So I don't want us to get into a space where it's like case by case basis. No, if you're a Black woman and you say that you've been violated, you said you have been abused, I'm going to believe you until otherwise. Now, it's not for me to act as if I gotta be judge and jury and prosecutor and defense attorney. I'm God, and so I know what's in your heart. No, I'ma just believe you. Because if that's what it takes to keep a culture where we're protecting believing Black women, so be it. It doesn't do nothing in my back that she lied to me. In a big scheme of things, yes, we were all concerned about it. But if she lied and then she's found, she's held accountable for that lie, that doesn't break my back. It doesn't, create a major disturbance in my life. But in my thinking, I don't want to be in a space where I have to start being a CSI for every time a Black woman is violated. I just can't do it. And I feel terrible in doing it. And so I'm choosing not to do it.
I hear your point.
I'm gonna believe y'all. I'm gonna believe you. Until otherwise, I'm not gonna be this guy.
The thing is, there's so many powerful points you just made. And again, there's the micro and there's the macro. There's the global view and the individual case by case view. So as an attorney, I just look at my, facts are facts. And even when we see videos, I would say that even in this social media age that we're in, we're not going to get away from it. People going to throw stuff out there and it looks real and people, put together the story and it, so believable. There are allegations that she put saline in her own face. There are allegations that it was an allergic reaction. Right. And the way that it swole up, there are other people that, post online where if they're allergic to something, their face swells up in a similar manner. It is so sad that we have gotten to that point where, as you pointed out, it's like all of this, just can't be taken at face value. As an attorney, that I technically my spirit when I first saw this, context is everything. And what happened before and what happened after matters. Right. Because it gives more credence. Right, more information about what may or may not have taken place. She took advantage. If all
that's all
are true, and then there are grifters and scammers among us. That's not to say,
and the culture breeds that.
Yeah, we have to really now say this could be true, and if it's true, it's horrible. But we also have to offer that, look at the GoFundMe. The GoFundMe is active. This is again for one single Black woman to have had 2 major incidences where she's calling out Black men as being, perpetrators and hitting her and doing her wrong. This is a person who if the allegations are true, it looks like it is someone who came to exploit us, this old tension that, Black women versus Black men, and we need our protectors and they not protecting us, and all this. It has done so much damage just in the conversation. It has forced people who, again, believed her to engage in. So we are now backtracking. We're now like, in the, not only in the story and the way we're covering it, but just like backtracking in the progress we're making between healing wounds between Black men and Black women. That's what I'm talking about. And now backtracking in terms of us having one another's back so that we can rebuild a stronger, more vibrant community. That's what hurts me.
No doubt.
The damage it creates in the public psyche towards Black men, which they already are dealing with on a daily basis. That's the injury. Like, again, we're talking about 2 things at the same time. There are Black women that are subject of violence every day in our country. Every day. They should be protected. But this in its own unique way, that's why even last week I was like, I don't know if this is the case study for Protect Black Women. I think this is a case study now that we have more information and all these allegations are coming forward. Again, all parties are innocent until proven otherwise. But when we look at what we're hearing, you possibly have created this huge firestorm that pit not only Black women versus Black men, but again, created in the beyond the Black community, social zeitgeist, a reinforced stereotype that Black men don't step up, that Black men are that they want to hurt Black women, that they gonna stand around and do nothing. That's not our Black men. So if we're gonna call a spade and say for this individual, the damage that she possibly could have caused with what, again, many now are questioning. There's so much swirling, allegations. I was, down the rabbit hole again, looking at the videos on TikTok and on YouTube.
But here's the thing, though.
Bring that forward so that we can reverse some of that narrative around our brothers.
I'm with you 1,000%. Here's what a couple of our crew members say. First, Young Feet, you said, bro, Farajii, all of us need better judgment. That is the fix. You shouldn't just believe anyone. To be a good judge, you take in all information. So listen to Black women, not just blindly believe. Here's the thing, Young Sikh, I hear you loud and clear. Let me share this. What else here? Andre John, you said it. I'm going to respond, Young Sikh. Andre, you said believing everybody can get you in trouble. No, you must prove trustworthy. She has a history of scams. You can go to jail helping someone like this. Nope. Got you, Andre. I got you, Young. So here's the thing. How many of us, when we hear stories like this, when we hear Carly Russell, when we hear any story like this, how many of us are going to go and take time out of our day, out of our lives, to do some investigative work to try to determine if this story is real or not? How many of us are going to actually do that? Like, we will never get all the information because, one, we are not in a position, unless this is what you do, But you're not in a position, you're not going to take time and be like, let me just check to see if this black woman is telling the truth, because the last time another black woman lied. Okay, so if she lied in this case, what does that have to do? How much damage? Now, the damage is, as Suzette speaking out, is about our culture, about the perception. But I'm saying to us personally, it does no harm to us personally. We just get a little disappointed, but we're not going to do the investigative work. It's I think in this day and time, in this culture, who's going to take time and be like, let me go through all the details. Let me do the back footage. Nobody's doing that. Nobody is going to do that. And guess what? If this woman shows up on the local news, and I mean, not this woman, if another black woman shows up on the local news, shows up on CNN, we automatically assume, because there's this thing in media where you trust the sources, we automatically will assume, well, if CNN reported on it, if MSNBC reported on it, if the New York Times reported on it, it must be true. We saw it with Carly Russell.
But sometimes I agree with the idea that facts take time to be uncovered. So sometimes when things are initially reported, you're not going to have every single detail about who that person is. I agree. Track record. Again, that's why things go, viral. Social media now, where there is social media, but the thing of factual information versus non-factual information.
Wait a minute, say it again, Suzette.
No, there is no gatekeeper. Now things move so quickly so that people, it forces your hand to talk about it because everybody's talking about it. You see it on Shade Room, you see it on everybody else's. So now it is a thing. So again, this is less than a week later, just over a week, more facts now have emerged. So it's important that we do come forward and talk about them with the same passion, right? Open the conversation up a little bit more, paint the aperture. Listen, now we know this is not the first time. Now we know there's other possibilities. And again, we have to, I'm hearing that the person who owned the nightclub, there are allegations that he is now purported that there's nothing on video from his establishment that shows any type of brick incident. That there are also others that are alleging that they have spoken to on the condition of anonymity, people in the medical field who saw her that evening, and that it was an urgent care or some kind of, not a hospital setting. As we, again, in the video, it looks so real. People spend time and think about how they're going to create the narrative that they want to portray to the public. And that maybe in the changing room while the nurse practitioner, whoever comes in, she have the robe on and she now doing a video and ready to put that on TikTok. There are other allegations that there is no police report and things like that. Again, if something like this had happened, you would think that we would have a statement from local police and they would have a description of somebody. They would be looking for something. So I think it's important that we allow, again, in this viral environment that we're in, we have to look at the source and consider all possibilities. I know it is frightening to believe that someone, an individual, would go to this length. But again, we saw Carly Russell go to a length that I would have thought would have been unimaginable. So we have to, it's a sad thing. Like I'm on again, as an attorney, put my attorney hat on. When people give me their version of facts, my first thing is, okay, what are they leaving out? That's how I think.
But see, here's the thing though. Here's the thing. All right. So look, that's understandable. That's understandable because, as an attorney, and I really hope you don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But as an attorney, you are trained to question everything.
I don't believe
you are trained to question things in this pursuit of truth and evidence and facts, right? That's what you're trained to do. So anybody telling you one thing, you already know, like this is one person's version of what has happened, right? As an attorney, that's what you're trained to do. So unless we get that formal training, unless we condition our brains to think and wire that way, and I know some people say, like some of the crew members are saying, like, when you're trying to get facts and all of that stuff, like this is social media, y'all. This is culture. This is people talking out of their necks every day, right? Like people so fast. People happen so fast. Yeah. I remember, Casey, this has nothing to do with this. I remember when our good brother Nipsey Hussle was killed. Do you know on the same day that Nipsey was killed, everybody and their grandmothers had prophecies, theories, conspiracies about how that man was killed. And when it came out that he was killed simply by another black man over a beef, there was talk of government conspiracy. There was talk he knew too much, so he had some assassins behind him. Yeah, it was an assassin, all right. It was a black man that didn't like him. You see what I'm saying? Like these things start to take shape. It takes a life of its own.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for us to say in hindsight on Monday morning, oh, we should look at all the facts. But when we're in the mix of things, that's not so easy because human behavior just compels us to say our 2 cents. How many of us see stuff online, Facebook especially, because you can really get into discussions on Facebook or Twitter or X, whatever, and we just throw our 2 cents in. Same thing with this chat. Like if we don't fact check, if we don't have people who are serious about making sure that facts and evidence is provided, man, that thing can go from, you can have one person throwing a fact, but if you have 99 other people who are like, nope, this could happen, guess what's going to happen? Groupthink is going to start to set in, and everybody's going to start thinking the same thing. So it's just a matter of, it's not just one individual. There has to be a collective determination saying, look, if something happens in Black America, and I know this is kind of idealistic, but we got to say, let's wait till all the facts come out, y'all. Let's just calm it down. Yeah. Everybody calm down.
Well, people ain't gonna do that. People ain't gonna do that. I agree with you in principle, but the way, as you're saying, news moves quickly, stories go viral. I mean, things by the time, before a reporter had the whole day and checked facts, and then we came on the evening news and gave you the info that we, were able to fact check, corroborate with different sources, people who could tell us, who had direct knowledge of things. Now, things go viral first. And then we have to look at them more critically. So yes, I'm with you to the extent of that. It moves so quickly. We're going to talk about it.
We got to talk about
it. More information. I'm glad that we're using, platforms like this to clarify. There's more information now, and so
that's why
we have to question whether it was a hoax.
And very quickly, we got to take a quick pause. But my editorial team, my producers, and I, when we have these conversations, this is just a little transparency. And even Suzette and I talk before we get on the show, after the show. We don't want to present information. We try not to present information when stuff first comes out. I try to, as one of the producers, just say, okay, let's look at this. Let's give it a couple of days and see how the situation pans out before we even have a conversation. Because if you jump too quick, then you're going to lose out on information. But if you wait too long, then people are going to say that you're not up on what's going on.
Delicate dance.
So you got to find that delicate balance between presenting the information in a timely manner, but at the same time having all the facts in place when you do the presentation. All right, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more conversation on the other side, folks. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
On his first day in office, with the country in crisis, President Biden got to work for us. Cutting Black child poverty in half, more money for Black entrepreneurs, millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowered the cost of living and prescription drugs. But there's more to do. He gets it because we all deserve dignity, safety, respect, and a chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Let's just switch gears a little bit here because we're trying to cover a lot here on today's show. And I wanted to make sure that we do give enough time to discuss this issue, something that we can actually believe in, folks, which is the issue of reparations. Now, we've been having a number of conversations here on this show, on this network, about the importance of reparations. And as we know, states such as California, Illinois, New York, these are states that are actively looking for ways to bring some level of repair, whether it's financial repair, financial compensation, or in other ways, to deal with how do you repair the damage to a people that have been aggrieved and oppressed for over 450 years as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And so there was another major development, or I won't say major development, but there was something that came up just recently where there was a poll that was done, folks, around this issue here in the state of California. NBC News talked about this. And Lisa, if we could put this first quote up in here, there is some level of resistance on reparations in California. According to the University of California, Berkeley, they polled released this week shows that most Californians oppose Black residents receiving any financial compensation as part of reparation recommendations from the state assembly. Among all of those who responded, 59% rejected the idea of cash payments to Black descendants of slavery in the state. Meanwhile, 76% of Black respondents were in favor of cash payments, and 66% of white voters were opposed to Black Californians receiving money. Democrats are more likely to support cash reparations than Republicans, and those with no party affiliation who strongly oppose. Now let's go to the second quote here. Mr. Reginald Jones Sawyer, who is a member of the Reparations Task Force, he said the results show a lack of knowledge around California's deep involvement in slavery and other forms of racism that devastated Black families. He said, quote, polls can be skewed because usually enough information isn't given to the people so that they don't have a full understanding of what's going on. He said if each individual that they polled had read that 400-page document we did last year, which proved how California was complicit in chattel slavery, and read the 1,100-page document that we printed out this year, which talked about what reparations should be, there's absolutely no way you would believe that there shouldn't be some type of compensation. To inform the public, according to Mr. Jones Sawyer, he said the California Black Caucus will begin a fundraising campaign to hire a firm to disseminate, quote, clear and concise and direct messaging about the report. Obviously, most people didn't read the preliminary or final report by the task force. People now are trying to debunk those findings. Let's go back to my sister, Suzette. It's interesting. This is really, really interesting. And I have been talking to a number of folks. Of course, we had people on this show to talk about reparations, Suzette. But to hear that now that there isn't an overwhelming support for reparations in one of what many would say is one of the most progressive states in the country. This is interesting, that this might slow down the momentum. But to Mr. Reginald Jones Sawyer, too, who is a member of the task force, and I appreciate the task force for even doing the great work of putting together these two pieces of documents, the 400-page and 1,100-page. But Mr. Jones Sawyer, you do know that people aren't going to read a 400-page or 1,100-page report. Like that's just not what people do unless you're in that space. That's what you study. You see what I'm saying? But on average, the average person, quote unquote, is not going to sit down and read a report. Hell, we got political leaders that don't read the laws,
the bills that's coming across
the bills before they vote on them to become laws.
Yeah.
So I want to temper the expectation a little bit that people should read the report, because I'm sure in those pages they lay out the groundwork. But you're talking about America in 2023.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to this particular story when we are looking at, what could influence people's opinions. So first and foremost, okay, I always look at polls too, but we always have to remember it's the set of people, whether it's 1,500, 3,000, 5,000 people, whatever it is. The subject matter they cover represents what those people in that poll, and again, we don't know what their age or racial or ethnic makeups are, but it's good to kind of keep that in perspective. This is not all Californians. These are the people who answered or were asked this question in the poll. We also know when it comes to polling, it depends on how you ask the question. So
that's very true.
That respondents may not say cash payments, but we know, and I want to give a shout out to my brother Michael Imhotep, who is the resident, I think, expert here on the Black Star Network when it comes to reparations and how it benefits the country as a whole. When he describes it, if you were injecting money into, Black households, Black businesses, Black education, the country as a whole is lifted. Right? White folks also benefit and make money. Right. And there's an entire ecosystem that is fed. So I think when he, has been on this program with us and talked about how we must also educate people on how reparations is not just a Black thing, this also leads me to the ideas that we really need to emphasize the teaching of American, slavery. Right. And the history that I don't think a lot of people may or may not have a complete understanding of. Right. Even Black folks.
But let me pose this question as we talk about this, Suzette.
Yeah.
Is the issue that people don't know the history, or is there something else at play here? You see what I'm saying? Is it really about the history of the historical? I don't think, first thing, I'm being very serious when I say this. I don't know anybody over the age of 18 that's never heard of the transatlantic slave trade.
Well, when it comes to specifics, for example, Bruce's Beach. And most Americans never heard of Bruce's Beach before. We covered it, and people understood that these folks' land were, taken from them by the state of California, and it was just recently awarded back in terms of a cash payment to their descendants. Right? They had created what was, in fact, a Black resort because of apartheid in America, separation based on race, according to law. So I would say yes, as a kind of a broad idea, people know about, quote, slavery. But the individual impacts and the impacts of their city, their local community government, their state, I don't think is as well known. So even I think Florida history and things like this, that's why I'm like, reparations as a whole, for people who are looking around and say, we had President Obama, you guys have access to college. You guys, I sit at my house and look at PBS and talk about, the integration and see stories and film about the integration of, Mississippi and certain school districts, which really happened all over the country, that even though it was a law to integrate schools, there were creative ways that are even replicating themselves right now. When we talk about so-called school choice and people being able to take their kids out, white folks did that in mass in order not to have integrated schools. Do people know that history? No. Will
that compel people?
No, we want to make sure that all Black kids stay within the public school, and we have a two-tier system where people who have, access and money have actual real life education and develop real life skills, and therefore long-term possibilities for their lives, as opposed to people who get inferior educations by this systematic defunding of public education. And I could go on. I'm talking about those histories. The average person don't know the links between what the government, the actual city, state, and at one point our national government sanctioned, so that there was one group in our country that was elevated and one group that was subjugated. Like I'm saying that I don't know that they know the historic and real life implications of what slavery was. I think they understand this concept that's happened and it was bad, but what impact it had and even has now, generationally speaking, I do not think, especially the American public at large, that we have in our country, and probably by design, a good grasp and understanding of what it meant and how we are all living with the outcomes of what was, America's, darkest, sin. Like, this is not, I think, common knowledge.
I agree with you. And let me just add this, and then I'm going to disagree with you when we come take a next pause. I'm agree with you on that.
Okay.
The thing that I want to add to it that is that I don't think Americans as a whole, not individually, I don't think that we understand the idea of the principle of justice. Okay. We just haven't, and I'm saying as a collective, we don't have, since justice is not a value of our systems, whether it's government, it's just not a value. The idea of fair dealing, of people need to be held accountable. These are ideas that America pushes to the back. These are not ideas that we hold true. Yes, we say freedom, justice, and equality, but justice means punishment in some cases. Mm. Equality means equal playing field. Right? Freedom means giving a person the person has the ability to express themselves, to feel like they can be who they are and who they are, right? I mean, these are, when you ask any one of us, what does freedom, justice, and equality mean? You're going to get a million different answers. So my point is that if there isn't a collective value or a collective understanding that wrong was done to this group of people, therefore, they should be, as a result of that, generations have been affected, and someone has to be held responsible and held accountable to fix the wrong, to undo the damage to these people.
Restorative justice.
To restorative justice. And that's why, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's why restorative justice is such a big deal in America, because that's not a collective value of this country. We do not operate from a place of justice. We talk about it. We talk about justice on other people, on other countries. But we don't like to talk about that shit on us.
Take a break. Well, hold that thought. I hear you.
We will hold that thought. So that's what I'm gonna add to it. We gotta take a quick pause, folks. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation. How there is a new poll that says that that people are not in an overwhelming support for reparations for Black Californians. We want to hear your thoughts on this. Join us in the chat on our YouTube page under Roland Martin, and stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
President Biden has delivered for Black America. More funding for Black entrepreneurs. Millions of new good-paying jobs. He's lowering the cost of medications and the cost of living. Joe Biden is delivering for us, and that's the facts.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, checking in with my sister from another mother, Suzette Speaks, who's joining us. Even though it's on a Thursday, she wanted to join us for the conversations, and I'm so glad that she did. As we're talking about this issue of reparations, how there's a new report that shows that there isn't an overwhelming number of folks who are in support of Black Californians having reparations. And we're talking about that some of the latest data from that report, and more importantly, the implication that has on the conversation about reparations and its momentum there. So yeah, Suzette, before the pause, we were talking about, my point is that I don't think that a lot of people in this country have a sense of justice. Let me just share with you what Benny Hill checked in. Benny, I appreciate you. You said it's a mix, Farajii. They're uneducated, but a lot don't understand the implications or effects of chattel slavery. White people don't seem to acknowledge any of the failures of Reconstruction. You also said, so how do we hold them accountable, Farajii, if they refuse to acknowledge the atrocities? And I think that's part of the challenge when I'm saying, and having this conversation. Black people is one form, but how do you have this conversation? How do you make white people the majority of this country, but not necessarily in the state of California, but they're in powerful positions, influential positions. These are part of our state leaders, to understand this idea that they need to be rendered, that justice needs to be rendered. Because in the same piece from the NBC News, it said, Suzette, that another hurdle for this reparations movement is to actually educate the lawmakers. It said another hurdle will be educating members of the California Assembly who are expected to sponsor legislation based on the task force's 1,000-page report published in June. So that means you got to teach them.
Listen, this is not going to get any easier because everybody has their issues. We have a lot of single issue voters. We have people who are, standing up in the fight for, what they believe in. And if this is something that a collective we want to see, it's not going to be any less difficult. We are going to have to roll up our sleeves and do what we're hearing, which is that the education piece is one of the major pieces to moving the ball forward. I think, again, there are times in our country where other issues now that we have seen become law seem, impossible, that no one would vote for them. Oh, no, keep talking about them. We've had congressional hearings on it. I know that even when I go up to CBC next weekend, there are a couple of panels I see that are being led on reparations and from the federal level. And I think it's very interesting that we have seen certain programs, we'll call them, at the city and county levels already in certain places around, the country. So I think there are two things that can be happening. There are smaller, what we call laboratories. The states were always called the laboratories of democracy because, again, with all the 50 different smaller governments that we have, right, and the big national government we have on the federal level, we can try things. But I think California is still the right place to try this. But again, I'm wondering, and you had posed a question before, what other contributory factors and issues are going on? What came to mind, and I'm not as familiar with California as probably you are now, that you are in LA, but when it comes to the budgets and what other things are priority to the average voter, of course, all we're getting on the news about California is a lot of natural disasters. And this is me from the East Coast looking over. I see a lot when it comes to substance abuse and addiction as a major issue there. You correct me if I'm wrong. I see homelessness.
That's the one
major issue. So
that's the one.
Other issues going on, maybe in the list of what's most important to the average Californian, they are saying, well, we're cool with y'all. We're cool with it, but we prefer that we prioritize our spending dollars when it comes to these other issues. I think have a better, more priority.
I think to that point, that's exactly the take that some Californians have, white Californians and other folks, that it's become this money issue, this cash payment, because we got to ask ourselves, and I'm saying as Black folks in this country, what's more important, cash payments or some other form of justice measure? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it about land ownership? Is it about college admissions? You know what I'm saying? We would have to figure that out. So if we're talking about just simply cash, and we talked about this on the show before, where they were looking at like over $1 billion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so now when it comes to dollars and cents, then people are going to naturally be like, we can't afford it. We can't afford it, right? Because California is already, you got all these different people here in the state of California, right? All these different people. You got a housing crisis that is just completely out of control with homelessness, right? You got 40,000 people on the streets of LA.
People living in trailers on the side of the road.
Trailers. And when I say that, you would think that a movie was being filmed. That's how many trailers. You see what I'm saying? And look, I love LA. I've seen people literally laying on the street, the middle of the street, just laid out. Literally got to walk over them.
Unhoused, right there.
Unhoused, uncared for. I've seen people who have suffered from mental health issues, literally schizophrenia, bipolar, talking to themselves, walking down the street, walking past schools, and walking past businesses. Folks don't bother them, but it's present. You see it, and you feel in your heart that, damn, like, man, this is a effed up situation for the human being to be in. So when we have these conversations, it's like we just got to figure out, like, okay, what's going to be the priority for the state, right? And I think for even those school of thoughts about lineage versus, the harm, the folks who say, well, if you're Black and you've been harmed, you should be qualified. We got to figure out how to bring these two ideas together, because I think they're both right. I think, okay, lineage, understood, but harm, we've all been harmed. Mm-hmm. We all been affected. So we can't discount that either, right? So I think this is a big part. But more importantly, if you got to educate lawmakers on seeing something like this,
we have to. This is why we have to pay Black lobbyists, people who are involved at different levels in this system. It's all important. Again, no one is going to give any ground just because it's right. That, I think, is probably the biggest fallacy sometimes when we are looking into politics and we're like, oh my gosh, why don't they just do the right thing? There are people who, again, look at this board, this chessboard of sorts. Like, I think Nicki Minaj, who was it? Cardi B says she living like a game of power in the music industry. Well, this is like a game of power, guys, when it comes to the resources of this great nation. We have to see ourselves as inheritors and that we are a part of the caretakers of the ground that was won in terms of housing access, in terms of education access. You yourselves, us here, again, we're a little bit more elevated when it comes to the discussion because we care and we read and we know, but we have to be educating one another. We have to work on our elected officials, whether you are calling them, writing them, sending them articles, meeting them at, networking mixers and things like this. We have to stay on them. This is not a system where it just happens just because when rest in peace, all the trailblazers that we've, lost that say, we fought for, and it's still, something that we must fight for. It's a very real thing. We are working, we are paying bills, we are trying to survive. And I do think sometimes they're putting pressure on a system so that we can't come up for air and pay attention and go into, political mode. But if we're not careful, I keep looking at my great state of Florida and how much ground we're losing. I wanted to ask you, Farajii, about the demographics of California, because I know Black people are not the major minority there also.
No, it's Latino.
Asian and Hispanic are far more significant in terms of the Californian population. And I was thinking about how demographics might play a role in some of the attitudes and opinions as well. But this is a fight, guys. This is not something where, again, we start with the ballot box. That's where we start. But beyond that, we have to understand that if they can create laws that are voter suppression laws, or you can't register, everybody in Florida was wiped off the vote by mail. You have to go back individually and register for your absentee ballot for it to come to your house and be mailed. That's the number one way, for example, in our state, Democrats vote. But they made a legislation that wiped everybody off of the vote by mail. You won't get it unless you go onto your supervisor of elections website and request it again. These are voter suppression tactics. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't do it. That's why we can have essentially what is, minority rule here in Florida, not us, but people who are not the majority in terms of their ideas, right, have changed rules so that the damage can kind of just stay, kind of take hold for like a couple decades. I'm looking at what we have to do in terms of Democrats in this state. I keep thinking, like, Lord, what are we going to do? We have to keep pushing and getting good people to run. And education, though, is the cornerstone. Let me get off my soapbox. But education is the cornerstone. When I keep thinking about, we cannot have, half sleep people. Like, it could be just a full contact sport. It's power. It's people looking at it and saying, guess what? I'm going to get the most for my kids, my grandkids. My kids still going to be in control of all the halls of power. Y'all could keep begging. Y'all can stay on the outside. There is no, we like to say there is a common American value, as you pointed out, when it comes to justice, equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Yes, there is, because we all swear allegiance to this Constitution, the great document that has given us, the pathway to so many freedoms. But if they didn't have to follow it, they wouldn't. And they're not. That's how the country was for hundreds of years. That's what it said in the book and on the beautiful piece of paper. But they were like, but not y'all. Why are we shocked? This is my thing. So the education piece, the advocacy piece, we really have to be okay with. This is going to take us, on the front lines to get it done.
Well, we know that the California Black Caucus is looking to do these, and we got to say this, then we got to take another pause, but the California Black Caucus is looking to have these kind of like meet and greets and going into certain, various cities throughout the state and in certain areas to have these conversations. And it's going to be crucial, right? It's going to be crucial. Now with the CBC having their week of convention next week, my hope is that the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, will elevate the conversation to even higher role, but in a very, very strategic manner.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with this poll or believe this poll, the facts are there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of ground that needs to be covered, right? And, I would advise folks let's put in the groundwork. Let's do whatever is necessary, because if we can get the state of California to see the benefit of reparation, and not just to see the benefit, but to actually put money and other resources behind this idea whose time has come, it will be like a domino effect across this country.
California,
it will be a domino effect.
A lot of times in these type of, innovative policy solutions. So I hear you on that, brother. I do.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
On his first day in office, with the country in crisis, President Biden got to work for us. Cutting Black child poverty in half, more money for Black entrepreneurs, millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowered the cost of living and prescription drugs. But there's more to do. He gets it, because we all deserve dignity, safety, respect, and a chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, you're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, and I'm joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, who you normally see on Wednesdays, but joined us today. And we've been having some fantastic conversations. And Suzette, next week, you won't be with us. No, so I'm not happy. But you won't be vacationing in Tulum next week.
No, I wish, but no.
You will be in Washington, D.C., God willing, for the 52nd Annual Legislative Conference hosted and presented by the Congressional Black Caucus. And if you aren't familiar with the CBC, this is the 58-member caucus of Black lawmakers who have this convening every year to put it en masse, to show their sign of unity, to discuss the most pressing issues facing Black America. And this year's conference is going to be on a number of issues, considering where we are, but the focus is on democracy and race. And one of the three big ideas are diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's going to be interesting to see how the CBC week kicking off next week is going to move forward. But what should we expect, Suzette, from this week of Black lawmakers coming together outside? And I know I'm gonna throw it out there, outside the damn parties.
Farajii, we gonna be outside.
Hey, no, I know people be like, you hating because you don't get invited. No, I'm not hating. I'm just saying it's not. I'm just saying like we don't party enough.
I might be at one or two, Farajii. I'm trying to look at the list now. Let me pull up my plenary sessions. Let me get to the serious stuff. But yes,
always party.
No, we're not gonna just party. There are over 100 different events tied to this weekend, right? So you have the who's who, of course, the Congress folks, senators who are from local.
All right, wait, hold on. See, this is the problem. You know what I'm about to say, Suzette.
What you gonna say, Farajii? I'm just looking at the
list.
This
is the problem.
What you gonna say?
I live in Hollywood. DC ain't Hollywood.
You switch to the other coast, right?
No. Here's the thing. These are public servants. I know. I mean, for real, y'all. These are public servants. These are not like actors and entertainers and ball players and all that. These are public servants, right? So we sometimes within the culture, we get a little bit like we forget, like these are public servants. These are political leaders. These are supposed to be some of the most brilliant, and I'm not saying it's supposed to be. These are the most brilliant Black minds that we have to offer as we are in this space and in this relationship with our government, Black America's relationship with the United States government. These are the folks that are like the buffers. These are the folks who are supposed to guide us through any type of political, social, legislative uncertainty. And so if we keep this in mind, I think that we go into this week with the understanding that this is not about being seen. This is not about grandstanding. This is about getting work done, because millions of Black folks in this country are depending upon this gathering coming out and something substantial coming out of this gathering.
I hear you loud and clear. Yes, I do.
But go ahead, talk about your parties.
I'm grateful that you are grounding us and that you are reminding us of the real reason that we're all coming together. And I do though would like to add that we do have, a certain, je ne sais quoi, the rock star element, because these folks are now, public figures on our TVs 24/7. So their importance are, to the community is kind of twofold. Like, I think it is a symbol of Black excellence. And I do think there are also, real world applications that are going to come out of the discussions of the different sessions. I have highlighted, I think I signed up for like 30 sessions, even though there are several that are happening concurrently, each on the hour, 2 hours. But just to give you a taste of what some of the sessions are and who will be leading them, I'm going to look at the ones I've signed up for. The moral urgency to end gun violence, a community conversation with U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock. Digitizing our dollars, understanding how blockchain work. Joe Neguse, who is from out west, developing environmental policy for all and restorative policy. We have hip hop conversations, right? We talk about the and being protected in terms of our free speech, in terms of expression. We're going to be talking about, I think there are other sponsors, I should say. Zillow is sponsoring, American Federation of Teachers, trade unionists. I got so many invites. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do after 5? Because there's so many people. Maxine Waters, who serves on the Financial Services Committee. She's going to be talking about closing the capital wealth gap. I have like I said, I could keep reading. Sheila Jackson Lee is leading Transportation Brain Trust, talking about Black folks tapping into federal dollars. Corey Bush is going to be talking about women and queer leadership, fighting for equal rights. We have Mark Vesey, all these folks, again, some of them you only hear by name, that are leaders in our Congress. But the CBC has been at the vanguard and at the forefront of political change, and change that improves the lives of all Americans, but especially Black folks, making sure we are not left behind as we, this rapid changing world that we're living in. We are always kind of looking to AI. AI is big. There are several sessions on Black people and artificial intelligence. How it will affect our jobs?
Lord.
Black people are working in different industries. I see there are a lot of sororities who are having sessions. Politics when it comes to reproductive justice, those topics around Black folks and how we speak about that and how it has had an impact on us when it comes to reproductive justice. A lot of it's like so many, I couldn't even. Hakeem Jeffries, I hope to meet him, and several others. There are just so many topics that even if you can't afford to sign up, the conference itself goes for between 200 to 250 depending on what you sign up for. There are always events, like I said, in and around the area that dovetail. They have a lot of receptions, a lot of networking, powerful networking that happens as well. So if you will be in DC or Maryland, Virginia, wherever close by, you may want to come through. It's Wednesday to Sunday, again, at the convention center, 9 to 5, but you must register. And I will have a full report on some of the discussions that take place and what I've seen. I'll be doing it on my channel, my YouTube channel, and on my Patreon, and some behind the scenes there. But I'm really excited. I know there's so much that we got to do. So as you said, it's about the work.
It's about the work. It's about the work. And trust me, my spirit isn't, I don't think these people do or don't do anything. I think that we do have some great political minds and thinkers, but I think that how we have these conversations is going to be absolutely tantamount in the sense that we have a sense of urgency, right? Like there's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of a vision. And, I often bring the CBC into the conversation about where we are or where are we headed or what's the state of Black America. We know that, for example, Mark Morial and the Urban League. We know the NAACP. We know the National Action Network with Reverend Al Sharpton. We know Operation Push with Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and all of these things, right?
NAACP.
But and making sure that when we have gatherings like this, there has to be when we look at the history of the Black political class, the black bourgeoisie, that making sure that all of our people are represented, right, in such a way that our people feel like, you know what, I can't be in DC, but my guy, my legislator,
or their
interests
are being discussed.
Or their interests, exactly.
They are going to be
like discussed. Their interests is going to be there, right? Yeah. Because I study Black America. I know, and I'm looking at the trends, right? And it's like we want to be in this kind of Black professional class. We want to be this Black elitist class, but then at the same time, we want to disengage ourselves from the reality of poor people, of poor Black people, right? And so my hope is that the CBC, and I'm not saying that they don't do this, but I'm saying that
everybody want to disengage, but I hear your point.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to say that. Certainly not. No. But I'm saying to always keep that line of communication where information, knowledge, know-how, all of that stuff is constantly funneling this. Because if poor Black people aren't at the center of the conversation, you know this, Suzette, just like I know this, and a lot of our crew members know this. What are we talking about? I don't want, we shouldn't present these new political ideas as a form of Black capitalism. There should be, and I'm saying this may not happen in this year's CBC, but there's a sister, and I'm trying to get her on the show, but there's a sister who wrote this book about socialism, Black socialism, and she's coming out with this book that drops in October. And like I said, I'm gonna try my best to get this sister on the show. But she's talking about how do we redefine Black socialism. And I'm not saying that that's the way that we need to go, but I'm just saying having those type of progressive conversations to be a part of the mix of everything else, right? Because it's necessary, because we know that they are present, that this form of thought, this type of thinking is in existence here in Black America. And we can't just say, oh, that will never work. Oh, that's just a dumb idea, blah, blah, blah. We got to be open right now. Like we're at a crisis. If we keep saying we're at a crisis moment in this country, then let's be open to all ideas.
Yeah, I think they're going to be there, Farajii. I don't think it's about, quote, upper middle class or bourgeois. I think there are topics that I see, especially relating to labor, right? The everyday man, everyday woman who is working class, right? Who goes into a factory, whether it's what we're seeing with the GM strike and other people, with the UAW strike and others who are on the front lines of working a fair wage and 8 hours, 10 hours a day, getting benefits. They have people that are sitting on temp status for 5 and 6 years because they don't want to give you full benefits, et cetera. I just was at a labor forum here by the Young Democrats here down in South Florida, and just talking about everyday people and their living conditions and, what is a living wage and how our Republican friends go around those the will of the people when it comes to, for example, here we voted on a $15 living wage here. I know California has a high living wage, et cetera, but then you will find legislatures kind of capping it by going around the general will of the people and now making all kinds of constraints or loopholes. But to your point, just based on this agenda, there are upper middle class, business class, working class, all kind of parts of our community, economically speaking, their issues are on this agenda. So I don't think it favors any one, quote, class of Black. I think we are looking at across the spectrum issues that affect from housing, like I said, transportation, looking at even how I see Haiti on there, how the diaspora is being affected down here. There are so many different topics. You're going to find various walks of African-American life represented in the topics that we're going to discuss next week.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to say, Lise, can we pull up the website, please, for the CBC's? You can go to cbcfinc.org. CBCF. There we go. This is right here, folks. I want to let us know this is the theme for this year's conference: securing our democracy, protecting our freedoms, uplifting our culture. I love it. I'm not opposed to it. We just got to make sure that there is this cross-generational, cross-economic, cross-cultural conversations that are happening. Because I've been in these spaces. I've gone to CBC stuff before. I've gone to NAACP stuff before. There's still a disconnect. And I know we don't like to talk about it too much because we don't want to like let out the skeletons in the closet. And when it comes to certain Black political thought, but I'm going to let it out. Like, we don't have conversations. Young people, and I'm talking about not young people that want to be in working for somebody's political office. I'm talking about young people who are on the ground. I'm talking about young people who are organizers and activists. I'm talking about getting some new energy up in there. Again, I'm not throwing shade on this gathering at all. I want to see what comes out of the gathering, right? Upon your report and based upon what's going to be shared from the CBC, let's see what's coming out of it. I'm just at a point where, and I think you and a lot of folks are, we're like, yo, if Black folks are coming together, then Black folks should not be coming out with the same old rhetoric.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? I'm at this point, Suzette. I don't care if you're Black or not. If you're talking the same old, scratching and when you don't itch, we got some fire for that.
Can register. There's a student registration. There's a mentor-mentee networking. Young people are encouraged to come. I hear you, because remember the CBC also I have friends that did the internship program. You can spend a summer there, right, under the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, learning about government, understand how it really works, who's who. Yeah. What do they do? What do the committees do? So there are many opportunities, especially for those under 25 to come in and plug in. There's a discounted rate for folks to register as well. There are Veterans Affairs. I'm going through the list. I haven't even began to scratch the surface of topics that are here. There is one particular seminar by Maxine Waters, a young gifted in Black, etc. The 50th anniversary of hip hop, plus other. And I read there are over 60 just sessions there. Again, with not even the tied in, after hours receptions and parties and other things.
That's all. I mean, it's all well and good. I get it.
Don't let them people believe it's not going to be discussed from.
No. I get it. I just look, man.
Moms passing what they call the momubus, all kinds of stuff I didn't even know about. I'm ready to learn. Right. That's why I'm going there. I want to know what people are doing, what's working, legislation wise, and what's coming down the pike. I want to know what's going on.
And look, I want some balls. I want people to come out with some testicular fortitude.
Shake it up. Let's go for what you said.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. I get it. When I'm in there, Suzette, real quick, when I go to these places, I just be sitting there like, no.
Let's start the whole thing out. Let's go. We need a new format. Like, it's important that they've been around for 52 years for a reason. And like I said, this is the open forum where the public's lawmakers meet there. A lot of people have never met their Congress people. So, this is where we, can finally engage those who we elect, right? The exchange of ideas, the people meet their elected officials and lawmakers is important. So this is the time. The exchange of ideas, I'm sure, will be happening. And again, sometimes it needs to be educational, top down, but other times I'm sure we'll have those opportunities to speak up and let them know what we're seeing on the ground and come up with a list of solutions.
That's it. Hey, that's it. My man Andre said, he just put in one word in the chat: solution. That's it. If you ain't talking solution, if you're talking about let's go along, get along, if you're talking about wait, your time is coming, justice will come down. Man, nobody wanted it. Man, please. We are a year out from a crazy ass election. We are already under attack in our schools. We can go down the list. We got something dramatic has to happen. If you want to get Black people engaged, if you're talking about waking up like my sister Lana, she always say, wake up Black people. If you want to wake up Black people, sometimes you just got to hit us in the head. Boom. Hit us in the head. Oh, getting us disoriented.
I hope we wake up before that. That's just my opinion.
I hope so. No, I hope so too. I really do. I really want us to hope so. So I look forward to connecting with you, God willing, in like 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
And getting your report. And that will give us an ample amount of time to see all the information that's coming out from the CBC, what's been discussed, And again, this is not about topical issues. This is like, all right, let's have a bigger conversation. So I look forward to connecting with you in 2 weeks on that, Suzette. Thank you so much.
I'll miss you. I'll miss everybody.
I miss you too.
But I'll be out in DC. So if you guys are in the neighborhood, come by to CBC and check it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Our sister Suzette Speaks, always doing her due diligence. Make sure y'all follow her on all social media platforms. Make sure y'all support her on her show on YouTube, Suzette Speaks Show. And more importantly, we thank her for being so good for the culture. All right, folks, my time has been well spent. Thank you so much to my online culture crew. Y'all have been amazing, fantastic, brought up some great things. Let me give a big shout out for The Last Dragon has been a member. The Last Dragon is now a member for 6 months. So we thank you, Last Dragon, for your support and investment in Black Star Network as part of the Bring the Funk Fan Club Level 1, loving what Farajii and the culture does. That's what I'm talking about. We love you too, Last Dragon. Thank you so much. Make sure you go to our website, blackstarnetwork.com, blackstarnetwork.com. You can become a part of the Bring the Funk Fan Club at Level 1 and Level 2 and Level 3. But make sure you show your support for us because we want to make sure we keep this momentum going here on this digital media space. So your support is everything. It means the world to us. And even if you say, I can't give today, you can share the content. You can follow us on social media. You can tell your friends and family about us. But guess what? Do your part to support Black digital media like this. And trust me, you will find this nowhere else with the conversations, the contributors, the engagement for you to be a part of the discussion. You won't find it anywhere else other than with blackstarnetwork.com. All right. I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to again thank my sister, Suzette Speak. I want to thank my production team, Joel, Shannon, Maddie, Chris. I want to thank my man, King Keena, and my sister Lise for being a fantastic production team. Stay tuned up next 6 p.m. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered with the team. Dr. Cobb, Reese, all of them. Y'all know how they do on Thursday. So make sure y'all stick around for that. Continue to support us here. Watch all of the latest shows. We've had a fantastic lineup of programming. So again, folks, let people know Black Star Network is moving along. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. I thank y'all for so much for tuning in and spending some time with us. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture. Right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Have a great evening. Peace.